Welcome to the Recruitment Rollercoaster podcast. My name is Hisham Azuz, and today I'm joined by, I think you're going to win the title for the person that's travelled the furthest for this podcast.
That's about right.
We'll just act like you've just come over from Australia. I'm with Andrew Mcgregor, who is a director of design and build, who are based in Australia. And mate, we've been speaking for a while.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great to actually meet you. And I'm excited for this one. So, as you'll know, where I always like to start, how did Andrew Mcgregor get into recruitment?
Yeah, look, it's a great question, and I think I always ask everyone the same question. But then I ask myself, why did I do it in the first place? Because sometimes I wonder myself. But no,
Really?
look, the story goes for most people that most people fall into recruitment. And it was similar for me, but the sort of backstory was that I was actually working in the tax office, believe it or not, for 3.5 years, which was an interesting experience. And part of my role was, sorry?
Was it boring?
It was, and it wasn't, because part of my role was doing tax investigations.
Oh,
so
wow,
I'd go out to places where we would suspect something was amiss. And I've done football clubs, I've done pubs, some famous clubs in London. And then it just so happened that we got this recruitment company to investigate. And subsequently, you go to their offices and you start to look at the people in the office, and generally everyone's young and they're looking slick, and you've got footballs flying around everywhere and loads of noise. And I was thinking to myself, I've been in a tax office for 3.5 years, and literally I don't have an email address. I don't have internet. They don't give me a phone. And I honestly felt like my life was wasting away a little bit. So as the investigation was going on, the director of the company said to me, why don't you get into recruitment?
Oh, wow.
And that's what laid the foundation, or laid the idea, so to speak. And then obviously one thing led to another. Did the investigation. They turned out to be dodgy ads, but that's another story for another time. But I couldn't help not think about it more. So then probably another 3 months went by, and that's when I started to look at recruitment.
So you actually proactively looked for that?
Yeah, I did. And it was, I spoke to a couple of friends, and in fact, one of my friends said, don't do recruitment. You won't be any good at it. You need to have a sales background. But no, I got into it by seeing it probably in the flesh, and thinking to myself, do you know what? I've always been a people's person, and people, describe what's a people's person. Dad was in military. I went to boarding school. I moved every 18 months.
That's tough there. I know a couple of friends who had that. That is tough.
Yeah, it is. But you put yourself out there. So whenever you go to a new military base,
otherwise you're going to have no mates.
You're always assimilating to people's culture. So for me, that meant when I was thinking about recruitment, I was like, well, I can do that easily.
Yeah, that's really true.
So that's the story of how I got into recruitment, basically investigating another company and turning out thinking that looks good for me.
Wanted some Rolexes.
Yeah, absolutely. Never got one. Never got one.
Cool. So then let's frame it up a bit then, and then we'll sort of dive into your story. So you worked for, was it Match Tech you worked for, yeah?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay, and then how long did you work there for?
So I spent 4 years there.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So, and that was your first recruitment job?
Yeah, that was my first recruitment job.
So you worked there for 4 years, and then after that and then is that when you left to go to Australia?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So I spent 4 years there, and started as a junior consultant, as you do, and progressed over the time into team lead role. But then after about 4 years, started to become a little bit over some of the, I suppose, mentality of a big corporate, if you want to call it that.
We'll dive into that. And then after that, you then went to Australia. Did you start your own business straight away, or did you then obviously work for someone for a bit?
No. So I originally joined Design and Build as a consultant.
Oh, wow, okay.
In Melbourne. So I basically, Neil was the advertiser in a magazine for recruitment consultants, and I got in touch and joined as a consultant. What was that now? Almost 9 years ago.
Okay, so then you've obviously got to the point where you are now at Design and Build over the 9 years, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Perfect.
Became an owner at that time.
Okay, cool. So you've lived in Australia for how long?
Come 9 years.
Wow, nearly 10 years, yeah?
Yeah,
okay, amazing. All right, cool. So excited to unpack that then. So going into Match Tech, obviously, were they like obviously big at that point when you joined?
Yeah, I think they were approximately 200, 250 people.
Oh, okay.
And it was a single site office back at the time. So when you walked in, it was everyone was a suit, tie, Schmidt, no, everyone had shave. It was very.
And what was the sector that you went into?
I went into civil engineering, so highways in effect. But yeah, it was that interview experience was. I've never experienced anything like it, and I never will again.
Talk to me.
4 stages.
Yeah.
Every stage they're telling you you're not good enough and you're not going to be able to do the job.
Was you up against other people? Was it like a group one, or was it just you?
No, it was just me.
Okay.
And like each interview was about an hour, and it was just like, no, you can't do this. You've never done sales. You've never done a degree. I sat there. I don't know if I can swear. Can I?
Yeah, of course.
I was like, fuck you, mate. I can do this. Because I'm one of those. Don't tell me I can't do something, because I'll go ahead and do it.
Even more, yeah.
But there was even a psychometric. There was an intelligence test.
An intelligence.
Yeah, and then you had to meet the MD, and I got through all of that. On my first day, you then meet the MD on the first week, and he sat there and he said, "I don't know what you're doing here."
Really?
And literally, that was my first week in the job. And I was like,
oh, so you got the job by this point? Then
I got the job.
You met him, and then he was like, Andrew, what the hell are you doing there?
Yeah, he was like, yeah, you don't have the conventional back. I'm not sure, but we'll see how you go.
Oh, wow.
I lasted longer than him.
Yes, nice. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, civil engineering, and then just to help me understand and the people listening, and then was it contract you went into? Was it perm?
Yes,
has it always been
contract temp within local councils and highway authorities. So, an example would be the Highways Agency or Transport for London. So all I did was highways, and Matchtech were very specialist. So it wasn't, if it was a bus stop or a bus route or a traffic, a cycleway, I couldn't touch it. It had to be someone designing a road or supervising the construction of a road inspecting a road. But it effectively made me that 5 mile seat, 5 centimeters wide. So it made you super niche, but it allowed you just to go straight to the hiring manager, say, this is who I am, this is what I do. All I do is what you do.
Yeah.
And they were very smart about that.
Okay. Amazing. So what I always like to ask people before we move on, like how were your first 12 months then? So obviously you had this MD saying, Andrew, nah mate, not sure, we'll see how it goes. How were the first 12 months?
I was rubbish.
Really?
No, look, first 3 months for me, I started late October.
Okay.
So I still remember my first placement, and that came in sort of early January.
How mad is it you always remember your first deal?
I remember my first 3, I think, but
really?
I think the second guy's still in the job.
How long did it take you?
It took me so I started 26th of October, and I think the first deal was early January, like 13th of January. So it took a bit of time to get into it. Hence the reason why they were giving me a bit of stick, but I did the numbers.
Yeah.
But look, it was difficult because I hadn't come from a sales background.
Yeah.
And, they hammered you. But at the same time, what I remember about it was that sort of every call got better. So every phone call just got a bit easier and a bit easier. And suddenly after 6 to 7 months, you've spoken to these people at least 8 times.
Yeah.
So they start to know who you are. You're starting to consistently talk to them. And suddenly you feel like it's a switch. You're like, oh yeah, that conversation just went a lot better than the other 6 had gone. And that's sort of when it started to really build after about 7 to 8 months. That's when my temps went from 1 to 10 to 20. And I think, it went on from there.
Really?
But I always say to people, 6 to 9 months, it's always difficult. So I put on
Would you go back and do anything differently?
It was funny, somebody else asked me that, and it's so long ago that I look at it and go, well, I can't change the past. So
of course.
There's anything I could do differently? Probably not.
Okay.
I probably could. What would have been easier, and I think in today's world, because we've got podcasts, because we've got books, etc. else, I always say to people, if you want to make it easier, listen to these.
Yeah.
Listen to other
the
people.
Recruitment Rollercoaster podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Go team. But no, it's true because
sure.
you don't get a lot of help.
You're right.
In the first, and you're always looking for people to sort of help you. So I'd always say to anyone, if you want to make it easier, listen to these podcasts because we've all been there.
No. I think again that was sort of what this was born out of. Really, I worked for a small boutique agency, and I learned so much from everyone around me. But like I just totally recognised that there's got to be so many more people out there that I can learn from. Okay, just quickly then before we move on, I guess. How did you because I'm just thinking people listening who are maybe going through that period at the moment 6-8 months in their first 12 months where it is still really difficult. Did you just naturally, when you get off these calls and you're improving, did you say, okay, what could I have improved there? Or did you get, I mean, like, what was the process of you getting better? Was you asking for help? Was you listening to other people? Or was you getting off the phone calls going, right, Andrew, that's gone really well. Why was that? How could I improve that? That went really well. Did you get what I mean?
Yeah, look, I think one of the things I was taught very early on, because don't get me wrong, Matchtech were great at the training,
sure.
But what I was taught and what I always say to everyone is make sure you get something from every call. And it could be something that's quite insignificant, but just look to get something from every call. And it could be so insignificant as when do you next want to talk? When's the next time I can speak to you? Because whilst that might not sound significant, when you call them back, you turn around and say, you told me to call you on this day. Yeah. So therefore you've had a win along the way. But what I've always said today and 9 or 13 bloody years ago whenever I've got recruitment is, when shit goes wrong, that's fine. What did I learn and what am I going to do next time? So it's always that sort of, analyse every call, but don't overanalyse it. Just get on the phone, get beat up a little bit because you're going to get beat up.
Oh, yeah, of course you are.
Prioritise speaking to a lot of candidates. If you've been set a target of whatever 100 calls or 150, whatever it is, double that with candidates, because they'll be the ones that will give you the information. They'll build your confidence.
Yeah.
But I also immersed myself in the industry. I learned about every project.
Really.
I learned about every company, how many temps they've got, what's the maximum they've ever had.
You've got a good memory.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a Rain Man memory.
Really.
Rain Man.
Well, why did I just feel, because I did a podcast yesterday with a contract biller, and he had a really good memory as well. Like
I don't know what it is, but an example would be that consultant Charlotte, who's actually back in the UK now, she was talking to this chap, and she shouted across the desk to another guy. She said, "I've just spoken to this Peter Phillips." I went, "Oh yeah, he worked for that company in Brisbane in this role back in about 2012, 13, right?" And she just looked at me like I had 4 heads, and I was like, she went, "How the fuck?"
Was just natural?
Just comes naturally to me.
That's mad.
I still remember my clients' numbers. So when I got back, I called a couple of them just because I remember their number.
That's a joke.
But it's just some people have got that in their brain. And I always say that, I don't want to be rude to people, but you generally want to test people's memories and try and figure out how much they remember, because that's what people buy into. When you want to build trust with someone, you refer back to what you've spoken about previously.
That's obviously, Again, that can give you a bit of a point of difference and make you stand out when other people are calling them.
I mean, ultimately, when you walk into a client's office or meet a candidate and they talk about a company or something, you just go, "Oh, that person does da-da-da-da." They look at you like, all right, so you're serious. It's like, I'm dead serious about this.
I like that. Cool. So then just I know you touched on it, but help me understand. So you obviously billing, that went well. Then you went, and then did you go up the traditional ranks of match tech? So
that's right. Yeah.
So what did you sort of evolve to? What was the
my first role was junior consultant. Yeah. Then you move into consultant and then senior. But I always had aspirations for leadership. My
really,
father,
you always thought about that.
Yeah. Well, my father's a leader in the military. Yeah. So therefore, he started as a gunner, which effectively is the bottom rank. Okay. And I watched him progress into a senior role within the military. So I saw some examples of him being a leader, and I think that
inspired by that.
Stuck with me. And so, I always wanted that leadership role. So I moved into a team lead role after about 3 years.
3 years, okay. Yeah. And then you managed a bit before you left?
Yeah, I did, yeah. So I ran a team for about a year, and actually going back to one of those biggest regrets was my first year in management. I was a complete knob. Yeah. But I'd learned from other managers in the business who were a bit dickhead-like. But my last year, I sort of pulled my head back in. But yeah, the last year was leading a team of 4 to 6 consultants recruited in the sort of highway space.
Really? Okay. Let's just unpack that a bit then, and then we'll dive into the Australian stuff, which I'm really keen to do. Okay, so then firstly, like performance-wise, did you get that management position, the leadership role, because you was performing really well? And they're like, right, Andrew, if you can create 3, 4, 5 more Andrews, then this can be really profitable.
Yeah, I think that was the model of MatchTech. Was always sort of once you get to a certain point in your billing, you get put into more of a senior role. I think they promote bad people and they promote good people, like any business probably does. But yeah, I got up to sort of over 100 temps out.
Really?
I was billing.
And what does that mean, billing-wise, roughly?
It's probably about 15 to 20 grand a week.
Really?
So good.
So what is that? Sorry, I'm perm, so that's like what, roughly?
You get sort of up to 500, 600k a year.
Fucking hell. Was that like your biggest years? Or
in the UK it was, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so, but it's the MatchTech model, and they did incredibly well. And you'd inherit temps when people left and all the rest of it and all that jazz. But the issue they always had was it was margin. It was low timesheet margin. But that's where I was successful was, I got into an account and never assumed that I knew everyone in the account, because I think a lot of recruiters, they get too comfortable. But I was like, right, okay, so that's that division. I've got 4 temps there, but over there, Anders have got 6 temps, so I need to go and get their temps. And Hayes have got 4 over there, and Eden Brown have got 4 there. So I was always like, right, where else can I win temps?
Cool. Just quickly then, thinking again how people can get value listening. I think there'll probably be a lot of people listening that are contract recruiters, and they might have hit a bit of a glass ceiling, or they're more at they're nowhere near as to like where you got to, but have aspirations to get there. I guess you can obviously talk about your experience in Australia as well, but I guess looking back, what do you think were the key things that enabled you to get to that sort of 500, 600k plus, or the amount of attempts that you got to? You mentioned just a bit of a valuable piece there, but what were the sort of key things, would you say, that enabled you to get to that point?
I think some people have just got habits where it's never enough, and for me, every time I hit a certain milestone, whether or not my 5 grand a week in contract, 6 grand a week, 7 grand a week, 8 grand a week.
It's always wanting more.
What's next? But where is it as well? Because you've got to be smart about the clients that you're trying to target. There's no point in talking to clients where, if you're a contract recruiter and they've only ever had 1 temp. well, you know what, there's not opportunity there. You need to be identifying clients where they're a project-based client and they have seasonal, projects, whatever else, and suddenly, at their peak they've got 12, and right now they've got 1.
How did you find that out then?
Just asking information, speaking to temps, continuing just to always mine for information.
Yeah.
And it's a sort of it's an interesting. So how many temps have you got at the moment? 1. That's not many, but when we're really busy, because people like to talk about when they're busy, we've got 12. So you always want to be mindful of, if there's one client with 6 temps, but they've only ever had 6, and they're with one agency, your opportunity to success is less than we've got 4 now, but when we've had 12, how many of you had them with about 11 agencies? Isn't that difficult for you to manage with 11 different agencies? So you're always sort of mining for solutions and information. And that's how I did it. It was always, right, that's my temps there, but where else? And then you'd ask the temps. And then you look after your temps as well. I mean, one of the things Matchtech did really well, you couldn't not speak to your temps every 4 weeks, because they were on you just like a brick about it. About
staying in touch with them.
Yeah, staying in touch. So, you'd spend time with them, you'd take them out for beers, you'd get to know these people, because they're human beings, right? It's their job, and they, most of them, they work in temporary, they want to know that you look after them, you're looking out for them. And the moment you do that, they'll look out for you, and etc. Because they know that you're there to make money. It's just how you make it. Do you make it really well, or do you just make it by being selfish? And for me, it was always like, right, go to London every week, spend time with the temps, and then the other temps who didn't work through Matchtech would be like, why can't I go out for beers, and why am I being looked after? And the best example for me was 2 years ago when I got married. My best man was my temp, or my ex-temp.
Shut up.
No, my ex-contractor.
Really?
Yeah, so in Australia.
What?
Me and him got to know each other in London. But you get to build friendships with these people.
Yeah.
And so he was my temp for 2 years. I left, and then someone gave me a reference to do about 3 years later, and it was Struan, and called him up, and I was like, hello, you little wanker. And he was like, oh, for God's sake, I thought I got away from you. But no, subsequently, we built up a friendship, and he was my best man.
Okay, so to round that off then, I think what you said there, which is really interesting, was if I'm a contract recruiter right now, have you actually made the time to think about the accounts that you're working and the accounts that you've identified? Are there accounts that at peak or really busy times are going to need a lot more of a service, so you need more people? Have a real think about that, and if it isn't the case, then start trying to find out who are the people that who are the businesses that need a lot of people at these times. And then the other thing, which I've heard before, obviously, is really, really double down on your candidate network. If that is, it's getting to know them more than, it needs to be more than transaction, right? Because if you've got a really good relationship, then hopefully you'd like to think that if they get a call by another recruiter that's offering them 10, 15, 20 quid more per hour, whatever, you'd like to think, well, actually, Andrew's really looking me after. Do you get what I mean? I guess that's the sort of objective there, isn't it? So would that be fair? So there's sort of key things that enabled you to really excel to that point.
I think there's two other things also is, what do your clients do? Are they all capital expenditure led, or are they operational expenditure led as well? Okay. Just having a balance of clients about what sort of projects and what sort of work that they do. Because if you're just, all your clients are capital expenditure, that they're relying on. What does that mean, sorry? So they're money coming in, so there's investment.
Okay.
So they're working on projects that need to be built, or they're new projects. Yeah. Whereas operational sort of existing churn projects, so like upgrading services, etc. Okay. So you always want a balance of what your clients do. Yeah. So it's really learning that. And I think it's funny when you mentioned about candidate networks. My nickname was Payroll King.
Really?
Matchtech, because literally people would call me about, I've just got from Australia, I've got a job with this company, and I've been told to call you. And that's the nickname I got because I just looked after the people. Yeah,
that's amazing. So okay, cool. And then just be interesting to get your thoughts, because again, thinking of people listening, a lot of people, obviously, I'm sure you've experienced it now in your time in Australia, but obviously that is still quite common, where a really good biller is then pushed into management, even if they do want it or don't want it. So I guess you did say that obviously when you did start that management career, you was a bit of a knobhead. So let's just unpack that and quickly sort of talk a bit about the learnings that you experienced with that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that maybe are currently a bit of a knobhead in these things, or trying to understand how to manage people and how not to manage people. So what did you learn through that period then, and what were the things that you definitely would do differently? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, look, and I did do them differently. Because I think people want to be inspired and motivated to be better than themselves. Whereas when you're a younger manager and you're trying to bully them to being you,
was that? Because that's quite common, isn't it? It's like,
do what I do and do as I say.
Because it works. It works. It's like, why would you not do that? That's what I do.
But it only works for you.
Exactly, yeah.
One thing you'll learn is that what works for you only works for you and you only. Yeah. You can try and work to people to build their own habits and ways. But you are unique. So don't bully people into submission. Don't create a culture where it felt people coming to it, they're like, fucking hell, this is going to be a really shit day. Inspire people.
Especially in recruitment.
Yeah, it's tough enough as it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But so that's what I learned. I tried to replicate what my manager had done, but actually, with respect to him, I didn't really like him because of the way he treated me.
Yeah.
So then, I remember getting home one day and a few of my mates, and I probably acted out, with my mates, and they were like, "Stop being a dickhead." And
really?
Myself,
was that? Was it literally simple as that?
Yeah, and then I thought to myself, I'm like that at work, so what must they think about me? How can I help them do better? And it was like, well, stop doing what you're doing right now. Have open conversations and motivate and.
So it's a mindset change.
It is a mindset change, but it took a little while. But fortunately for me, sort of towards the end there, we had a team of people where we were all in it together.
Yeah.
Because what I learned when I went to Sydney, and obviously not to get too far ahead, but I wouldn't be where I was today without my team.
Yeah, of course.
So, I was glad that I learned that early on, because if I wasn't, I'd be in a completely different job in a completely different country somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, so it really was that mindset change of, I guess, being less selfish, basically.
Yeah, less about you and more about them.
Yeah, and that as simple as that would be your advice to people that are going through that transition at the moment.
Yeah.
And it will pay dividends long term.
It will, yeah. If you give people time, and obviously there's always another part to management of people, but give them time to get to where they need to get to. Just give them the guidance and the motivation. Don't bully them. Because bullying gets you nowhere.
I doubt you'd have the payroll king nickname when you were
we don't want to leave that as the everlasting impression. I just remember one of the ladies who worked for me in Sydney, she went to me, "Oh yeah, I remember you. You were called payroll king." I was like, "Oh no."
Oh no. Cool, mate. So Australia then.
Yeah.
Really, really keen to dive into this then. So, firstly, how did that happen? So, was it literally you saw an advert in a magazine?
Yeah. So,
what magazine was that?
Wait for it. This is actually a funny story. So, originally I contacted Rec, and he put me in touch with these 3 absolute basket cake companies, and I was like, right, I'm finishing this look straight away. But then I read the new Civil Engineer magazine, which is obviously a magazine for engineers about projects in the UK. And Neil, the director of design and build, had advertised for recruitment consultants.
Smart.
In Australia, and I thought, well, hold on a minute, this is pretty smart. I'm reading a magazine about projects, and it says Australia infrastructure boom, recruitment consultants required, design and build, and I was like, love the Dick and Balls logo back in the day, which is we'll talk about later. But I liked that straight away. It was different.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, and so I emailed Neil. I said, look, I've been thinking about it for a while. I'd actually had 25 finishes that day as well, so I was incentivized. But I emailed Neil. I said, look, this is who I am. This is what I've done. And then him and I spoke for 20 minutes on the phone on a Sunday, and that's about 2 days later. And then I spoke to Matt, the other director, for about an hour, and then I was in Australia 5 weeks later.
Really?
Yeah, no Skypes, no FaceTimes, no CV at the time, just 2 conversations, and then
What was the biggest driver behind that then?
For me, I'm urgent. As I've done psychometrics and I've got high urgency.
Okay.
And I was just like, right, if I'm going to do it, just do it now.
Yeah.
So I just.
But why did you want to go over there?
I just like the idea of it.
Really?
I was 26 at the time, I think. 27 at the time, and I thought to myself, you've never, you put yourself out there by leaving a safe job and got into recruitment. If you're going to leave, Match Tech, do you want to compete against them, or do you want to try something completely different? I was like, well, Australia sounds good. I'd never been to Australia.
Really?
So
literally you had never been there before?
No.
Love that. That's amazing.
Then arrived in Melbourne. It was 3 degrees, pissing down with rain. I thought, what the hell is this?
So where was you initially based in? Australia?
Based in Melbourne for 18 months.
Okay, and then where do you live now?
I live in Sydney now.
Sydney. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I guess the first thing that I'd love to dive into before we go into sort of that whole journey would be through that whole experience now. Firstly, so I'm under the impression that it was a lot easier as a UK recruiter to go over there as compared to as it is now. Is that correct in saying that, or
I don't know. I find it surprising that people say it's easier in Australia. I just think
no, as in easier to get over there.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
So like more like
gotcha.
Yeah. So that's what I meant. Sorry.
Oh, the visa restrictions.
Yeah, the sort of because obviously it was a lot. Was it a lot? Is that fair to say? So like
absolutely.
Because you know how it is. If you're a recruiter right now and you're listening, you've got 2 years, 3 years, 4 years experience again. You're getting nailed by Rec-to-Recs, right? Who are going to say there's opportunities in Australia. It seems like everyone's saying there's opportunities in America now. These things. So, what's the actual reality of a UK recruiter right now being able to go over to Australia?
The opportunities are still there, right? But
you can. It is achievable.
Yeah,
you can do it.
So I put on LinkedIn the other day. It's 2 years experience and a relevant degree. But a relevant degree is business management, HR, right? Not psychology, law, etc.
Oh, so relevant to the craft that you're going to be doing.
What we're doing, right? Or it's 5 years experience to get a visa, right, without a degree. But if you're
just 5 years recruitment experience.
Yeah, but if you're, that's what they state. Now, don't get me wrong. Some people are able to get visas outside of that. I never know how.
Yeah.
But what if you're in your 20s, you've got 4 years. You can go to Australia, spend 3 to 6 months traveling around, and then go and work for a company for 6 months on your working holiday, and then you've got your 5 years. And those sort of things.
And then would that be easier?
That would be easier, just to get out there and get a feel for Australia.
Actually, that's probably a better, smarter way, isn't it, to approach it?
It is, because the cost to Australian businesses of hiring through the visa process has almost trebled in the last sort of 5 years. So the risk to Australian businesses of hiring people from the UK has just gone up exponentially, along with the significant salaries that we have to pay now.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's definitely still achievable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you just gave some good advice there in terms of maybe a slight different way to approach it. Yeah. Okay, and then the other thing that just to get your perspective of, and then we'll talk about your journey in Australia, is what should UK recruiters be thinking about before they go over to Australia to like move their life there or career there through your whole 9 years there now? Like, what the hell should these people be thinking about if they're seriously considering moving abroad with their recruitment skill set?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. Yeah. I think there's a realization that when you first move to a new country, your first 3 to 6 months are getting to know people, right? I'm not talking about work here. I'm talking about personal. So if you are in a position where you can get a working holiday, I would recommend getting that and going to Australia, getting settled, getting to know people, getting networks of people before you take a job. Because once you get into the job, you've got to commit to the job. So, because when you first get out to Australia, you say yes to everything, yes to doing everything. Problem is that work takes secondary to that. And suddenly you find yourself 6 to 9 months into the role and you haven't focused enough on it because you're doing your personal stuff. So I think to myself, that's the one thing first. Get out there and get to know people.
To try and build some social networks. Yeah, it's
absolutely.
not just you like on the other side of the world trying to...
Yeah. Immerse yourself in the Australian culture. Don't go just go to the football, go to the beach, go and do Aussie things.
Is that like actual football though, or is that this weird Aussie football thing?
I mean, Aussie football, I love Aussie rules.
Really? To be fair, I've never watched it.
I went to the game early on with Aussies, right? But what you find sometimes is people just spend their time in English groups or Scottish groups or Irish groups, and then they start to say to themselves, you know what, I'm not really enjoying Australia. I'm not, and it's because they're not doing the Australian life, which is getting outdoors. And because basically in the UK, you sit indoors and wait for it to stop raining. In Australia, you're outside and you're waiting for it to rain because it's too bloody hot. So I think immerse yourself in the Australian culture. If you're going out and you've already got a job, make sure you spend some time learning about the lingo, learn about the locations, the geography, because UK, we don't mind travelling an hour and a half. Yeah, no worries. In Australia, they don't like travelling 15 minutes.
Why?
And it's a big country because they're lazy. No, they just don't like travel. It's not part of... They would prefer to spend more time at home in the morning and more time at home in the evening than being travelling. So I'm talking about construction, but if you said to someone, hey, it's a half an hour drive, they'd look at you like you've got 4 heads. Like,
really?
No, mate, it's not good. I want to be within 20, 30 minutes of home.
Mad.
Now, that's an extreme, but that's how Australians think, is I want to spend less time at work, more time at home, and I'm not going to compromise the home part.
Really?
So that's a nuance of the Australian market, in my opinion.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Interesting. So... 9 years, and you've only worked for design and build?
That's right, yeah. So 2 jobs in 13 years of recruitment. God help me.
That's mad. Okay, cool.
Unlucky number 13 for some, but yeah.
So, okay, just to give me some context and to frame it up then. So, join them at what sort of level? Because obviously you had quite a bit of experience now. Just consultant.
No, I took a consultant ride. In my view, I wasn't a team leader. I wasn't a senior consultant because I knew nothing about the market.
Yeah. And was you going into the same sort of niche, or?
I went from civil engineering contract to construction permanent.
Oh, really?
So I went to perm recruitment, which was... I remember doing my first job advert, and I was like, "What? How do I do this?"
Really?
He was like, "You've never done a job advert." I went, "Mate, I'm a temp recruiter. Don't do job adverts."
Okay. So give me the context. So it was perm consultant for how long?
Perm consultant in the Melbourne office for 18 months.
Yeah.
Recruiting construction, and then we had started up a Sydney office. Whilst I was in Melbourne, it had been going for about 2 years. Hadn't been going very well. Wrong people, wrong direction, whatever else, and I was a little bit despondent with D&B at the time. I won't lie. I felt the business was potentially going backwards in some of the things it was doing.
Yeah.
So I put my hand up and said, "Hey, can I go to Sydney and try and help you? Get the office going in the right direction?" And trying to put my own sort of stamp on it in a way. And obviously I had that leadership aspiration. Yeah. So I moved to Sydney seven years ago. April,
and then you stayed there since?
I stayed there since, yeah.
And when you joined there was what, you went straight into like a leadership role?
Yeah, so I took a state manager role. At the time it was myself and there was 4 others when I went into the office. Really? 3 of them went because, you know, new leader, etc. else. So I was lucky that we got Kelly.
So it was just you?
No, myself, Natalie, brought on Kelly in May when I joined in April. Yeah. And then Kelly and Alex are still with us today.
And then how many people are in the Sydney office now?
24.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've sort of led the direction of that and managed that with obviously other people and these things.
As I said earlier, you know, we wouldn't be where we were without the 2 guys, Alex and Kelly and the other leaders that have come through. But yeah, you know, during that time we've had a great sort of uptick in consultants and gone for a bit of turnover as well. Currently at 24.
Okay. And then did you stay in that perm? And did you stay in that market?
Yeah, I stayed billing as a billing consultant in construction permanent for another 5 years after.
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah, so I was still sort of billing up until about 2 years ago.
Really? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's unpack that then, and then I'd love to sort of get your perspective of sort of how UK recruiters have done when moving over to Australia and some of the biggest pitfalls or the common things that you see in these people and these things. But let's just unpack that a bit then. So how was that whole transition for you then? Like, was that a difficult period at the start?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It wasn't easy going from, you know, being very comfortable.
Payroll king.
Yeah, payroll king. It was like that.
To like top dog to like, that's tough, right?
Well, I always talk, you get given a plaque and it's a pile of shit. There's the maggots at the bottom and the beetle at the top. Yeah. I was a beetle at the top.
Yeah.
And then I became a maggot. And, you know, I remember the first phone calls, even the first phone call, all right, mate. And he was like, yeah, I'm all right. How are you? Really? Rather, because I didn't say, how you going?
Really?
So that was my first phone call.
Wait, say that again?
How you going?
That's how you should open.
That was my first phone call. I said, are you all right? And he was like, yeah, I'm fine. Why are you asking? And I was like, so righto. But even things like that, you know, just suddenly speaking the lingo. So my next phone call was like, how you going? The guy was like, yeah, I'm all right. You're right, because he was British. But no. So in all seriousness, it was getting to learn permanent recruitment. But I always will say, hand on heart, that I always believe temp recruiters are better recruiters.
Really? Why's that?
Just because of the amount of plates you're spinning, just the amount of volume and the energy that you bring into the desk. Permanent can be quite slow. So I think any great perm recruiter is someone that creates urgency, creates energy. And in temp, it's already there. But in permanent is not, so you got to create it. So that's what I learned within the perm.
So how did you deal with that transition then? Like, what are the different things that you had to change, and like the different, like, did you have a different approach? And do you know what I mean?
Because they didn't need someone yesterday. They sort of wanted to bring somebody on board. So you had to suddenly learn about crafting. You know, how you would talk about candidate skills and experience and what value they could add to the business. Because previously it was, I need a design engineer for 3 months who's got MX. Right, okay, I'll go and find someone who's got MX for 3 months.
It's like bosh they're in.
Whereas they're like,
obviously you've got to be decent, but still it's very reliant on the skill set they have. If they have that perfect,
you knew your networks, you knew who was good and who was bad. Yeah. And then they'll say, well, I want, and they always give you the hard roles first. Remember, in any new business role you're doing, they won't give you the easy stuff. They'll give you the hardest roles. And so you'd be like, right, and then you have to talk to clients about what value they're going to add, so that your sell of candidates completely changed. So then you've got to learn more about your candidates' aspirations and desires. So that was what I found was, okay, it wasn't just, I have a job here for this long, do you want it? Yes, you do, great, go. It was, well, I have an opportunity that I want to talk to you about, but before we get into that, I want to learn about what are the things that are going to make you want to leave.
I can imagine that being such a change.
I was like, oh my days. And then you were even negotiating fees was different, because then you're talking about the value you're adding to the client and what they were paying for. Whereas in temp, they're paying for the need. Right? I need someone, that's what I'm going to get. Whereas when you're negotiating in terms of business with clients in permanent, it's about what value you're adding, what features and benefits of your terms. So it was all these different things coming into it. But what I did, I just created urgency, and I had a lot going on. I was like, right, if I'm going to... I went with the rule of 3 back then, which was, for every 3 interviews, I'll get 1 placement. So if I want 12 and a quarter or 1 a week and a quarter, I need to at least have 36 unique candidates out at interview any one time. So it's just always about the volume. Don't get me wrong, I think one quarter I had about 80 interviews and about 2 placements, but that's because I wasn't very good in that quarter. But no, so for me, I just took the temp approach, which was always make sure you've got 3 to 5 new things on, but box each one off and move on. So I think that's the mentality I've always had, and I think temp recruiters, that's why they generally have a higher level of success. Yeah,
cool, okay. And then just quickly then, if I'm a contract recruiter now and I've taken a position into perm, what are the things that I need to be like, right, I need to get this sorted or whatever. So you said about create that, have that same urgency, these things, understand that actually how you're positioning your candidates and how you understand them is different, these things. But just to wrap that piece up then, if I'm a perm recruit right now going through that transition, what are you telling me to try and make sure that I get back to the success that I had?
You summarised what you said earlier, was that you've got to learn your candidates' desires and aspirations. You've also got to learn your clients. You're asking different questions to your clients about permanent recruitment needs rather than contracts. So you've already summarised it quite nicely.
Okay.
I think the other thing is also negotiating and standing your ground on your terms of business.
Don't put your pants down.
No, but understand why not to either, because clients think they're paying for the outcome and the guarantee. Right, that's what they negotiate terms of business on. And how much your fee is, what your payment terms are, and what your guarantee is. Right, that's not what they're paying for. They're paying for all the stuff you do before that. So it's about educating your clients about that part of the process. That's what you need to learn, because I talk to the consultants and other sort of peers a lot about features and benefits. Clients call us because of two reasons: because they want the time or the money. That's what because they haven't got the resource themselves to do it, and they don't have the money to do it either. But they don't call you because they think you're going to waste your time or their time, and they think you're going to cost too much money. So you sort of got to overcome these two things that conflict against each other. And I think that any great perm recruiter, that's what they learn. How to negotiate your position so that you win exclusive business and you win it for the right reasons, which isn't because of the fee or the guarantee, it's because of the service you provide. And that's something I learned over that sort of 4 to 5 years in permanent recruitment, which is why in the last 3 years all I did was retained.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We're definitely going to talk about that. So just quickly, and this part of the business, obviously I know it's been going for a couple of years beforehand, but like, was it pretty much you building it up from scratch pretty much?
Yeah, so design and build's been established. It's 15 years as of this year, but the Sydney branch had opened up in 2010, in mid 2010. I went there in mid 2012.
Okay.
So along with Kelly, Natty and Alex, it was the four of us, and for 18 months, believe you me, mate, it was really shit. I hit rock bottom personally, hit it professionally. I was in a bad way.
Why was you in a bad way?
Just making silly mistakes as a 29-year-old
sort
of single man in Sydney does. But I made some poor decisions personally, which obviously have a knock-on effect to you professionally. But what kept us as a team was our togetherness.
Really?
Every success we had, we celebrated it. And it could even be a good conversation with a client. The moment it happened, because we were in a room, and obviously people can't see this room, but this room is probably 4x3. Or 4x4, maybe. This is the size of our room that we're in, right? So you'd hear every call, good or bad, and when you had a good call or a good job on or a good interview, a good candidate, you're like, mate, fucking well done. The potential that could be, because we're, as recruiters, we're always about the opportunity and what it could mean and be. So that's what we did.
But you was pretty much building out of you guys then,
Okay. Yeah, we had a strong brand though as well. I mean, design and build, people recognise it for what it was. Okay.
The reason why I'm asking you about that is probably the most common question I get asked to ask guests on the show is around building a desk and business development and these things. So I guess I'd love to just get your perspective of how you approached building that business. Obviously, it wasn't just you, but you guys as a collective. What are the sort of key things that you did to get to the point where you are now in terms of the sort of building the clients and building that part of the business? Does that make sense? Yeah,
it does. Well, look, I think firstly and foremost, every new recruiter, every experienced recruiter, when they come to Australia, go to UK, US, they look at the biggest companies, the best companies in the market, and say, I want to recruit for that company. That's the first mistake they make.
Really?
Because they don't need you, right?
Why don't they need them?
Because they've got everyone else. Everyone else is chasing. Everyone else is offering them a service, right? You have to work with companies who need you. So where are the other people? So you've got your sort of tier one. If you talk about Microsoft, Google, if you talk about construction, then lease multiplex, for, subject to listeners, don't try and recruit for them in year one.
Okay.
Build up to them in year 5. You start with your SMEs.
Don't start with the big boys.
Yeah, because people assume that a company of 20 doesn't need to recruit via recruiter. Well, if their turnover is 20%, that's 4 hires a year.
Yeah.
Right. If you can then take on 2 of those hires, then all you need is probably in the first year. This is as well. I mean, it's not years 3 and 4, but you probably only need another 10 clients, and there's 20 hires in a year, and there's 300 grand in billings. Rather than trying to recruit for Lend Lease and Multiplex, get one role in that whole year, be competing against all these other recruitment companies and internal solutions, barking mad. Go after SMEs where there's teams of 20, 40, 60.
So what did you map them out?
Yeah, you're talking to line managers, you're talking to decision makers,
of course.
right? And you're establishing again, how much recruitment do you do? How many people are leaving the last year? What's your turnover? You get companies say, I've got 60 people and my turnover is 40. You're like, right, so 24 times a year you've got to go and find someone. Yeah, right, okay, well, hold on. How much in terms of recruitment? Generally, we probably hire 6 to 8 people in a year for recruiters. How many different recruiters? 6. Bingo. You're in a good spot. That's what you've got to do. Start to talk to your SMEs first, build your brands, build your networks, deliver on those, and then what will happen over time is you'll start to make your way up into the mid-tier space. And then
so when you say building network, you mean the clients and those types of businesses you're delivering and working for? Deliver.
Because you can also make mistakes as well in that end of town. Because there's enough of it.
Yeah.
But then, so what you did is we started one desk. I got that desk set, moved off it, brought somebody in, got another desk.
That's how you approached it.
Just set it up and then move away from it to give it to somebody else. And now we do recruit for the top companies in Australia. And
but you start with
the SMEs.
So that would be your advice then?
Yeah, and never forget them either, because there will still be 80% of your business will come from SMEs. Because you're still dealing, talk about gatekeepers and stuff like that. There are no gatekeepers in SMEs. You are dealing with the.
So how are you approaching these people? Like real practical? Like what's like the go-to?
For me, it's just phones. We're a phone first business, always have been. But I always sort of go with the track of, okay, let's look at a project they've won, and then give them a call about that. So have something ready to speak about. So that's sort of, you can use sort of project trackers, etc. else, and, introductory callers. This is who I am, this is what I do. I understand you've won this project, and go with that sort of conversation. But, there's obviously the marketing you can do behind it in terms of brand recognition. But I'm always phone first. People want to still deal with people, right?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Mate, I'm definitely all about the phone. It's just what can you do online? Like the part that you said about the projects, that's an online element. But what else can you do that can help that phone call conversation? Or what else can you do online to breed trust and credibility before you pick up that phone? Yeah,
I think in today's society, in terms of what we've got in terms of LinkedIn and sort of other sort of social sites and websites, you could be looking at that information that companies providing about who they are and what they stand for. If you start seeing them take part in sort of charity, etc. else, or you start seeing them take part in sort of industry events, start to talk about that. Because when you speak to someone for the first time, they want to know if you're serious or not. Yeah. And if you're just going in cold, you're going to have your pants pulled down pretty quickly. Yeah. Whereas if you're going in with something which is, I understand you take part in this, or I understand you take part in that, have something to talk about.
Okay. And then So then obviously you continued to billing for quite a while then. How did that go, billings wise? Did you obviously through that you had a tough period, but
it was fine. I mean, I always met my budget. In fact, I had one quarter I didn't bill a thing, which was a bit of a squeaky bum moment. Really? But for me, it was always about getting to budget, but it was never about being the biggest biller. For me, it was about getting something set. And then getting the fuck out of the way and getting something else set and building something that was bigger than myself.
Like that.
Because that was what was more important to me. It wasn't having a team of 4 where we were all billing shitloads of money. It was like, okay, well, I want to create an opportunity for Kelly to lead people eventually. That's what she wants. Yeah. Same for Alex. So I can only do that by building something that's bigger than us. So it was never about being the biggest biller. It was about building something bigger than me.
Okay. Just quickly then, before I dive into that, because I don't want to miss asking you about it, because you mentioned it. How did you get... You touched on it, but like, how did you get through those real tough times then, mate? Like personally, professionally, do you know what I mean? Because obviously there must have been more to it than... I totally get that you're in a room like we are today. It's 4 of you against the world. Like, you're celebrating everything that you achieved together. Totally get that, because it's not just about Andrew then and Andrew's problems. There's actually other people that are with me on this journey. How? Because I can imagine if I move over to Australia, or I'm a recruiter listening and I'm over there at the moment maybe, and it is fucking difficult and it's really tough. Like, how did you get through that real tough time then?
Seek help.
Really?
Yeah, just to ask for help. Perspective's one thing, right? And we could talk about that later. But seeking help is, I'm struggling. I'm not finding this easy. I'm having, personal, professional problems, etc.
Don't be willing to just suck it up and say.
No, don't suck it up and see that. You've got to seek help, and seeking help. You don't have to be embarrassed by it, but it's sort of like, hey, help me, because I need it at the moment. And then people start to talk to you about their problems. And you go, how did you get over it? They're like, talk to people about it, sort of help. So I think whenever you're having those moments where you're like, fuck, this is really shit, rather than go into a shell, go and speak to people. It could be your family, it could be your friend. It doesn't have to be recruiters. It can be anyone, right? Because we've all been there. We've all had moments where we've been at work or at home, on a football pitch, on a bloody...
I guess that's where it can be really tough. That if you move to the other side of the world and you feel like you've got no one to ask help from. Do you know what I mean?
Because everyone else who's moved across had the same issue.
Yeah.
So there's always those people out there who've been in the same boat as you.
Yeah.
You know, you're not alone. You never are. There's always people that have moved to a new country and they've gone through the same trials and tribulations. And so what I tell people a lot when I mentioned earlier about going to Australia is and it was Kelly that taught me it. She said, say yes to everything.
Really?
So when everyone says, do you want to do this? Yeah. Because what you do, you quickly find out what you like and don't like. But if you say no to everything, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
So then when you flip it on, I'm having a real challenging issue at the moment. It's like speak to your family, speak to your friends, you can speak to random strangers. People are generally open. And when you talk to something about that...
Just don't say, hey, mate.
Yeah. All right, mate. You can say, hey, mate. Hey, mate's fine.
Oh, really?
All right, mate.
All right, mate. Yeah, all right.
No, it was, you're all right.
Oh, you're right?
You're right, yeah?
Yeah,
mate, all right, you're right. No, it doesn't work. But no, to seek help, be open about it, you know, and obviously for me, that's what I had to do. There was that one defining moment where I had to sort of just be honest.
Really?
And everyone was like, yeah, all right, cool. Well, you know, what can we do? And I was like, oh, so I'm not going to be embarrassed by this or ashamed. No.
Yeah.
We've all been there. Perfect.
So have you ended up building relationships, other mentors or anything like that then that have helped you along the way? Or
yeah, other business owners
really?
In recruitment in Australia, I've gone and said to them that, you know, I'm going through a transition. And because the issue of thing, you go from being a consultant to a director and owner, right? Being a consultant, you're almost institutionalized. You know what you need to do every day to get the outcomes you're looking for, right? Then you move into director role and you're like, fuck, I haven't done this one before. And people are looking at you for, you know, inspiration, motivation, and guidance. And you're going, what I used to do was get on the phone and just go and just be, you know, show people how that side of it. Whereas I can't do that. I haven't got the time to do that. And I'm supposed to work on the business. So you're suddenly doing this whole new job after 13 years of recruiting. Like, this is actually quite hard.
So you reached out for help?
Yeah. And so you've got to reach out to other business owners and peers and sort of talk to them about, you know, how they navigated it, etc. else. And they also the same thing, which was I spoke to somebody else about it. And so
but that's even at the consultant level, isn't it? Yeah. It's like if you've got aspirations to get to over here and there's Sally in your office that's got there, or there's someone that you've seen online on LinkedIn or whatever, I'd say, like, I love that. Just actually reach out. And I think I always say this, but like I've experienced this myself, and like you'll be so surprised as to how many people are willing to help. Yeah. I know how many things have come off the back of the podcast where people reached out, and like there's so many great things that happen, but that's because people are actually really willing to help. Yeah.
Well, look, mate, I mean, obviously we talked about it earlier with you before we started about when you did your first Twitter, your social side. You know, I just got in touch with you and you weren't asking for help, but it was sort of sometimes it's just nice to give people a bit of a G up and say, hey, you're doing a good thing, keep going.
But people will be willing to help. Like if you are going through a tough time and you're like, fuck, no one cares, like this is hard, but there will be people willing to help. Okay, mate, so then what I'd love to get your perspective of then is, just quickly, actually, out of interest, because I was interested to ask, like, when you say, like, you build up something, then you get out of the way, you build up something, you get out of the way, what do you mean by, where do you need to get it to for you to be comfortable to give it away? Do you get what I mean? I think that's something interesting to...
You always want to probably, when I looked at building that construction team, because the construction team is what now, 12 people, you sort of want to know you've got 4 to 6 clients, which you can rely on to bring, you know, the business will come in, and then it's upon the consultant to probably go and win 4 or 6 more to take the desk from being a...
So how did you pass that on? Because you would have built those relationships, and then you telling them, right, so just to let you know, I'm now going to probably do more of this. You're going to be speaking to Tom, who's going to be...
because you're telling your clients what you're trying to do as well.
Yeah,
you know,
again, get them bought in.
What you're, you know, and we psychometric everyone in our business, but I'm very open. Okay. So I'll tell our clients what we're trying to achieve. I'll tell our candidates, and so I'll tell them why I'm doing what I'm doing. Get them bought into
the journey that you guys are on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, you know, clients are interested in hearing that, believe it or not.
Because obviously that can be a challenge, isn't it? It's like, why is Andrew not calling me? Do you know what I mean? Because obviously, you've got to be open and honest. Because you don't want people to perceive you like, Andrew's too good to talk to us now, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
But you've always got to be accessible. So it's not like I don't go out to client meetings. It's not like I don't go to events and see those clients. Because the clients always want to know who's right at the back, the one making all the decisions at the back of the room. Really? They want to know that person there's not a dickhead either. So for me, when there are issues that need to be sort of dealt with, You're
always happy to jump in.
I will always help with those issues where relevant and where I need to. Sometimes you've got to let people just deal with their own shit and say, right, figure out what you're going to do, make the mistake you need to make, and then, you know what, after that, don't worry about it. Because 99% of the time when people make a decision, they make the right one, they're just scared of making it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so then what I'd be interested to ask your perspective of then is, firstly, so the team that you've ended up building, How many of those are originally from the UK, roughly?
Yeah, great. Kelly and Alex, Kelly are state managers from the UK. Alex worked at Match Tech with myself. Adam's from the UK, and then you've got Aaron, who's Aussie.
Really?
I'm in Sydney. But the balance between the team is sort of 50% male, female, 50% I would say are Aussie, 50% are sort of overseas.
From overseas, okay, cool. So I guess before I ask you like some of the common things that you've seen UK recruiters struggle with, because I think that'd be really interesting to talk about. Like, what are the like key differences from the UK market being in recruitment to the Oz? Do you know what I mean? Is it easier in Oz to be a recruiter? Like, do you know what I mean? What are the sort of key differences?
Look, I mean, and obviously I've touched upon that earlier, probably at the wrong time, but I only have experience in two markets. So I worked at Matchtech for 4 years and Australia for the last 9. So when people ask me this, I'm like, I don't know, because I always dealt with Aussies and Kiwis, but people would talk about the UK being more transactional and Australia being more relationship based. Potentially that's one thing. But I think with Aussies, that they're more willing to give out trust, but you can lose it quicker as well.
Really?
That's one thing I've found, is that once you lose trust in Australia, you're never getting it
They
back.
like to hold grudges.
Oh, they just do not forget about it.
Really?
So that's why, our vision's all about being the most trusted, because we're like, don't fuck that up.
Yeah.
Okay, because once you've lost that, to get it back is so hard.
Really?
Is it, less saturated? Potentially yes, but is it still a busy market? Is still plenty of competition in the market? Yes, there is. Are there still the highest performers? Yeah, there are. I don't have enough experience to say, because I probably didn't work in enough agencies in my time. But I talk about Aussies and the way they are, that if you break trust with them, you're done. You're literally done. You need to move on. They're not gonna let you get away with it. So I think that's one thing I found. But their willingness to sort of meet and have a chat, way higher.
Really?
Yeah, way higher, because they're just that way inclined. It's like, oh yeah, good day mate, how you going? That's how you open a conversation. You don't go, all right mate, because then they're like on the back foot. So it's just having an open conversation with them as well. But sorry, I can't probably offer too much, because at Match Tech I did relatively well through my own style and the way I was.
Yeah. But that probably helped you in that and what you're just talking about there.
Direct and open. No bullshit. I'm not trying to pretend something.
Because if you were listening to this, and so if you're a recruiter and you're listening to this and you're in the UK, and look, let's be honest, if you are probably a bit more transactional, but you're good at what you're doing, you're good at putting people in the right place, and you may not have some solid relationships, that may be difficult because you're probably more inclined or more easier to make the mistake of breaking that trust than that if you go over to the Australian market.
I think I've generally found with people that I've worked with in the UK and Australia, that the more salesy they are, the harder it is for them to succeed.
Really?
I was putting some content together around, you don't need to sell, you should tell the truth. Just tell them who you are, what you do, and how you do it. And
recruitment sales, though, it is.
It's sales, but you don't need to actually sell, because they already know what we do. Or they have a perceived idea about what we do, and then you bring them into the real picture about what they do, and they go, oh shit, that actually sounds like it's a little bit more intense.
Crazy how simple it is, just do the right thing and be honest.
Tell the fucking truth. People say in 4 words, what we tell the recruiter is like, tell the fucking truth. It's not hard.
I totally get that. Cool.
Fear of loss and all that.
So I guess, what from your perspective then, what have been like some of the common challenges that you've seen UK recruiters have going over to the Oz market and trying to obviously replicate the success they've had in the UK? So you probably maybe touched on it there, but what are some of the common things that you've seen as you've been building your team?
Assuming that they will be successful. It'd be one, a presumption of...
assuming that they're going to be successful.
The presumption of, I've got 4 or 5 years, so I don't have to do what I did 4 or 5 years ago this time. Man,
they've got to go back feeling like a maggot, haven't they?
Yeah, they do, because that's how people perceive them. There's no trust. No one knows them, When you talk about sort of recruiters, when they're consciously competent, means they've got their market, they've got everything knocked off. But when you're going from UK to Australia, you know no one. Why would you assume you'll have the same level of success by doing half the work? And that's what someone once told me, is like, you go to Australia and you work 50% as hard as you did in the UK, you'll be successul. Bollocks. You still got to apply the same work ethic. But if you work as hard as you did when you first started, and you've got 4 years experience in doing it, you're ruthless.
I guess it's having the humility to be like, okay, right, I'm really going to have to pull my trousers
I know
up.
nothing. All I know is what I knew in the UK, and every conversation I'm going to see what I can apply and what I can't apply.
So is that the biggest thing then? Like,
presumption that they'll be successful. I've done this, I've got it boxed off, don't worry about me, mate. And then they get there and it's like, yeah, that's nice.
Is that I hear that's obviously quite a common challenge when, like, if you're hiring sort of experienced recruiters, that they do come with that sort of, Andrew, I know what I'm doing, mate. Like, relax. Like, let me crack on. But do you know what I mean? Is that a common challenge?
We talk about it a lot in our business around as we bring people into the business. It's like whatever you knew, that's fine. But there's a way that we do things. There's a way that our clients.
Is it that different though?
Well, it's just the way we are.
Yeah.
We all do things differently because everyone's unique.
Yeah.
But it's that willingness to adopt what we do. Because I've found it many a time where we've got our aftercare program, our work health and safety compliance, our sort of system compliance. And people are like, oh, no, it's not like this in the UK. It's like, well, this is how it is here. So fucking well do it. They're like, oh, no, well, I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, okay, we'll do it somewhere else then.
Yeah.
Because we're not a KPI business. We don't sit there and set, call targets, etc. else. But we set everything around trust, how we build trust with our clients, because that's the one thing we want to focus on. So when we start to say to people, what's your interview to placement ratio, what's your CV to interview, they're looking at me like I've got 14 heads. I'm like, that's the shit you need to know to build trust. But because some come over with that assumption of, well, I've done it before, I can do it again. Bollocks, I wouldn't come back to UK and think that I could be successful. I would go back to day one, which is, okay, how do I structure my day? What habits do I need to build, etc. else?
Okay. Interesting. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I guess what I'd also like to get your opinion on, because I think you're well placed to share your perception on it, is obviously as you've been building this team, I'm sure that you've had some really good billers, hopefully still have some really good billers and some really good people. What have been two things, what I always like to ask people about is what have been the common things that you've seen in those people that have helped them get to that point? And what I always like to ask is sort of where do you see people sort of falling short, or the habits that they have that prevent them from breaking through that ceiling? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What are the sort of common things that you see in the high performing people you have in your business?
Well, yeah, I feel like we're probably a bit smarter in the fact that we've profiled every single person through a psychometric.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what's the, just quickly, like, what's the thought process behind that?
Because you think you know people.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't. But you all start with you, right? So I'm aware of my strengths, but I'm also acutely aware of my weaknesses. So that's something that's made me quite aware.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness, right? But not everyone is. So the first thing we said, right, let's profile every high performer we've got. And there's a common theme that came out. So now, openness, urgency, energy, and accommodation. So these were things that people they profile.
Wait, say that again. Openness
to change and advice.
Yeah.
Accommodation, which was they won't accommodate certain things. So, standards, for instance. So once the standard's set, that's it. They won't accommodate anything else. Urgency. Having high urgency. Having high energy. And the other thing we always look for is empathy. So big. what we then decided from that was the two things we got permission to play. We call it, which is we'll hire someone if they can show two things, which is drive and care. Really? You're driven every day to succeed.
They're the key things that you look for when you hire.
And you care. You generally give a shit about your clients, candidates and colleagues. So yes, you want to do really well. And yes, you're going to bring loads of energy and urgency, but you're never going to throw somebody under the bus. You're never going to, and the accommodation part comes from, you're never going to allow your standards to slip. And those are the 5 key things that we can profile any one of them. And we've seen with our highest performers, they all sit in the same one. There's like this wave that comes through and it's like, right, okay, well, you know what? We know that not everyone's going to be the same, but those are just 5 things that we look for.
Yeah. Is there anything else within that then, within these high performers that you see quite a lot of the time?
No, those 5 things for me are always there. You know, the urgency of action. They come in every day. They've got high energy. They won't allow substandard sort of work and time, etc. else, but they've got a lot of empathy and they're open to feedback. So that's why we came back with our values of honest communication, feedback, care and focus. They all pair into, do you know what? I've just heard you say that on the phone. Did you consider, or have you considered this? You say that to a business leader who's billing 600, 700, 800 grand a year. They're cool with that because do you know what? It's helping them improve.
Yeah.
And that's how they all.
How do these people with these traits deal with the shit times in recruitment then?
I think the same as what we were speaking about earlier. Just talking about it, having perspective as well. Once you've been in recruitment, maybe 3, 5, 7, 9 years, and we probably all need a recession. By the way, I know that word shouldn't be used at the moment, but I've been through one, and we got through it. You know what? There's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. And we actually live in a world, I hate to say it, of rejection. We're either being rejected by clients, we're either rejecting candidates or clients. So we're always, most of the time, being said no. So you've got to celebrate the good times along with it. But perspective's a wonderful thing. You sort of go, well, where was I 3 months ago? Where am I today? And where could I be in 3 months' time?
Perspective's huge. Like when you really tap into that and understand that and cultivate
That's what I say to every new consultant is, think about where you were a week ago and where you are today. Think about where you're going to be in a week's time. Then fast forward a year.
It's so easy to forget that, isn't it?
It is. And then you suddenly go, shit, I'm going to be ruthless in a year's time.
Yeah, it is so easy to forget that. Okay. And then the other part to that then, mate, I think that's really cool that you profile people, and it's amazing that obviously they've got their similar traits, isn't it? So I guess, and then what do you see in the people that you're just like, oh, if they like, do you know what I mean, that are just sort of just struggling to break that? Do you know what I mean? I get a lot of messages where people are like, Hisham, I'm hitting 150, 180k a year mark. I just can't break that 200, 250 mark or whatever. Do you get what I mean? Like, what are the common things or habits or whatever that you're seeing in people that are struggling to break through to that next stage?
I think you've always got to be looking at your 80-20 rule, which is that, you know, people talk about 80% of business from 20% of your clients, but you also need to be turning over 20% of your clients quarter on quarter.
What do you mean by that, sir?
So you've always got to be bringing new business in.
Okay.
And never settle on what you've got. We talked about it earlier, and that the assumption of, I've got this covered.
Don't get complacent.
Yeah, but you've got to be continuing to have those conversations with your clients. And, you know, one of our consultants has gone from being a high performer to being an incredibly high performer. Because we went to their office as a client, and they went, yeah, so we recruited 40 people last year. 20 were via Alex and 20 were via another agency. And his face just dropped because he was like, what? Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
And so I was like, there's your assumption. And because he'd never asked a question about, hey.
Yeah, you just assume you're doing like amazing. Yeah.
An assumption is the mother of all fuck ups.
Yeah.
Right? You know, Steven Seagal said that in Money Train. Don't know but, you know, it wasn't Steven Seagal, another film. But it is, you know, and so when you get to maybe in the UK, you know, what's that? Probably 30 placements.
Yeah.
But you got 52 weeks in a year. Why can't you make one placement a week or 48 if you have an annual leave? Realistically, at any grade.
So break it down so it doesn't sound as huge. Do you know what I mean?
Do by placements. For me, it's about doing by the number of placements you're making, subject to the market you're in. Because your average fee will take care of itself if you're making sure you're protecting your terms. But if you're making...
Doesn't sound as much then either, does it?
No, if you're making 24 placements in a year, honestly, you could double that. By working with better clients, better candidates, and focus on better roles.
Okay. So you mentioned, I know I've already sort of asked you about it, but I guess how much of a struggle for your guys in your office as like business development? Is that fair to say like that's quite a big challenge for a lot of people, right?
It is for a lot of people. It was for me, you know, that first phone call.
So how do you help people with that? Because I think a lot, as I said, people always ask me about that. Like, and you just said there that 20% make sure that you always bring the new clients these things. That's going to involve business development and these things. And I think like thinking back to when I did it, I definitely got way more confident with it. But I can see that it'd be very easy to be like, oh, I've got all these clients that like want to give me time, these things. The thought of then being rejected more and having to do that is a bit like, nah, fuck that. But that's that complacency part.
But it's complacency is also drive. Yeah. You know, how driven are you, and how much, what do you really want to put yourself out there and be? You know, people talk about the 90%, the 99%, the 99.9%, not 99%. Where do you really want? Do you really want to be highly successful? Because if you do, you'll do it. If you don't, you'll sit where you are. Going back to sort of new business development, etc. Else, you have to do it every day. You can't sit there and think my clients are going to get me through the next 5 years, because they're not. Their conditions will change. They'll bring in new hiring managers, new line managers. So you can never assume that you've got it, because you haven't. When you go to new consultants with new BD, etc., it's going back and saying, do you know what, this first phone call is going to be the worst one you're ever going to make.
Just be real.
Because it's going to be
horrible, isn't it?
Horrible. They gave me the worst person I could have. My worst BD call was my first call, because they knew they gave me the phone and said, this is the person we want you to call. And he lit fucking rip. And the bloke said to me, that'll be the worst one you ever get.
Really?
And it has been ever since.
Out of the way.
Yeah, so obviously we don't do that to people there, but we remind them, again, we've all been there. You know, it's not like anyone's walked in and here's all your clients. We've all had to get on that phone and introduce ourselves and sell. And we're like, oh my days, because you can hear, hey, it's good day, it's Andrew from Designing, but how you going? They're like, you hear that huff and you're like, righto, this is going to be difficult. And then obviously, I don't want to take too much of your time, and I want to touch base. It's like, don't use those fucking words. Just try and be real and try and be different. But just know, do you know what? You're going to fuck it up more than you're going to get it right in the first probably 3 to 6 months. But after time and after you've been speaking to these people, every conversation gets easier, because I get phone calls from rec to recs now and again, new ones, and they sound terrible on the phone, the first one. But all I say to them is, look, nothing right now, give me a call in 4 weeks. And this is what most clients will do to you. Look, I'm not interested, give me a call in 4 to 8 weeks, or don't call me at all. Okay, I'll give you a call in 4 weeks and check in, because I know you're busy. Email them, tell them you call them in 4 weeks, call them in 4 weeks.
Yeah, follow up.
We spoke 4 weeks ago. You were too busy to talk at the time, etc. Else, great, done. I suppose some people just get afraid of cold call and BD. I'm like, but every time you deliver, you're building trust.
Yeah, no, booking calls. Yeah, I had a guy on who said that really helped him. That really helped me actually when I really. Well, yeah, it's exactly well. Okay, cool. I'll touch base with you. I'll call you in 4-6 weeks. I'm gonna book it in my diary now. I'll book it in your diary.
Yeah, follow up.
That helps a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, it used to be 7 to 9 touch points before you got a buy. Yeah. Now it's 12 to 14 because we're so busy.
Yeah.
But my wife works internally. Right, I've got friends who work internally. They've got PSAs, and people call them now and again and say, "Hey, I'm looking forward to get on the PSA," and they go, "Well, give us a call in a month's time and we'll catch up," or "Give us a call in 3 months." They don't call back. You're done. You've already failed. Whereas if someone says, "Look,"
because if you call back and say, "Oh, we spoke briefly," blah, 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 that's again you're elevating your brand. That's who you are.
Nothing right now. Okay, I'll call you in 4 weeks. But in the meantime, it was a hard to fill role, and then you call back in 4 weeks and they say, "No, there's nothing there." But how we broke into some of our clients in construction, we spoke to them every 4 weeks, and when their job was advertised, I'd always get in touch and say, "I'm just going to ask the question because I'm keen to work with you. Any opportunity to work on this role?" "No, Andrew, not right now." Don't take offence to it. It's just that they said, at least they've replied.
Yeah.
But then eventually they pick up the phone and you've got the best company in Australia calling you about 3 roles they're going to work with you exclusively on. Yeah. That's when you're like, win. Sometimes it takes 2-3 years, but if you want to be in recruitment, that's how long it might have to take.
It's a long game, isn't it?
Yeah.
How just quick, I want to ask you some things around branding and stuff, because I think obviously as a business, I think from what I can see, you've been on an interesting journey. I think you've definitely got a personal brand. But just quickly, how does mindset fit into all this? Do you know what I mean? Because I think that you're probably the first person that I've sat down with that have said openly that you've what was the word that you used when you've profiled everyone? So again, psychometric. Sorry. Yeah. So, like, where does mindset fit into all this, in your opinion? Because
the mindset comes from drive, right? So it comes from someone being driven to succeed, but it also comes from habits. You've got to do the same thing time and time again to get impact. So when people start doing sort of social media presence, they do it once in a blue. Oh, I just chuck that on LinkedIn. It's like, that's nice. When are you going to do your next one? Or when I no plan about it. The mindset is, I want to build a brand.
Yeah.
But before you do that, what brand do you want to build?
So you got to think about that.
It's habits. The mindset thing comes back to habits, which is, I'm going to make sure I do the same things every day, because by doing them every day, I know eventually I'll get an outcome from it, and I'm not going to give up because it doesn't work after a week or a month.
Yeah.
You've got to continue.
How do you cultivate that in people? Because in today's world, it's like, put something out, you want likes on it straight away, you want comments on it. Like, do you know what I mean? It's that whole sort of instant gratification thing. So how do you cultivate that in your people?
It's allowing them to understand that the impressions, I think likes and comments are one thing, but there's people always watching the background, right? So I always talk to people about the number of people who interact with our brand in a year. So last year, our brand was interacted with impressions 113 million times. Yeah. So I was like, that's 4 times the population.
And remember, they are people. That's like a number. Yeah. But they are people.
Yeah, like that's 4 times the population of Australia. Almost 5 times. Yeah, in fact, sorry.
It's madness.
And all you're saying to people is that you're building awareness and presence. So when you do pick up the phone, now and again they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've seen you comment."
That's what it's all about. It's about combining them both. Yeah. But then definitely. But then what about just in terms of like your people, recruitment, in terms not sort of the brand piece, like how do you cultivate that? Because you got to have a long-term mindset, and that is what people really struggle with. They can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They can't see above the rejection daily and like the 5K months or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So how do you cultivate that in your people?
You've got to tell stories, haven't you? You've got to bring people on the journey. You talk about my own personal journey. I talk about Kelly's journey, Alex's journey. We all started as recruitment consultants. You've got to bring people on the journey because we've all been there.
Yeah.
And we are where we are today because some of us built these habits and we do it consistently and every day. But it's different for again, we're all unique. My personal branding came about through authenticity, being true and being open and being honest. So when I talk about things on LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever else, not really selling, I'm just telling my own story.
Just being honest.
But that's what it's about. That's trust for us.
When I sort of look at because you've really done well with that, I guess. How has it helped you? Do you know what I mean?
It's given me purpose.
Really?
Yeah. So when things are shit, because one of the things that I got taught was like, when things are really shit, look at what you're doing, because that's all you can look at, right? You can't look at what the other company are doing or what the market's doing. You're going to look at what you're doing. So when you start building your own brand, whether or not be externally or internally, just look at what you're doing every day and having that purpose. So whenever I now sort of meet consultants, meet clients, meet candidates, because I talk a lot about trust. and authenticity. When they meet, they're like, "Fuck, he's really honest."
Yeah.
But that means that I'm being true to myself, and I think in life,
that's what's
unless if you're not being true to yourself, you're playing an act, and there's no point in playing an act. There's no point.
It's not sustainable.
No, it's not. You can't just exist. You can't play an act because eventually you'll burn out, or you'll be found out. And the worst thing is that you get found out.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me that is the great thing about the online piece is like. If you are a shit recruiter, like you can be exposed like that, and that's a great thing. Is like you couldn't the sort of brand that you have and how people perceive you, like you couldn't have that and it not be true because you're just one comment away of someone saying, "Andrew, mate, you're lying," and everyone can see that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's what I spoke about on LinkedIn. I said perception is one thing, but how you treat people in real life, that leaves an everlasting impression.
Yeah,
they're two different things. Perception is someone builds up a perception of you, and then they get in touch, and then you do what you do, and if you don't deliver or you don't be the person that you're
perceived as,
you're done.
Because that's the whole game with that. And I think seeing your sort of presence online and stuff like that, I think is very much in line with what you are perceived as, which is should be the objective of everyone. Is like when they do sit down with that candidate and client, and they're like, "Wow, Andrew, you're exactly how I thought you was." Like that's like so powerful and really valuable. But I guess the question that I always get, and I have my own way of answering it, is like, because I'm sure you get this, is like, okay, Andrew, but how does it make me more money? Has it made you more money?
Yes, made me more trusted. So people have come to us and engaged with us, clients, candidates and consultants, because we do what we say we're going to do. So eventually, obviously, other people want that experience, etc. else. So has it made me more money? Well, I was 23 when I got into recruitment. I didn't have a degree. I was working in a tax office as a tax inspector. I'm 36 and I've got a business or two in Australia. And I didn't do it by being a dickhead. I did it by being honest. And being, I exposed myself at times, etc. else. I was vulnerable at times, but you know what? That's fine. Because the good people will grab hold of that and make you better. The shit ones, they'll take advantage of it. Don't worry about it. It's sort of, there's a book, Give and Take by Adam Grant. It talks a lot about giving. Just give, just be you, and that starts with just being you. So when people say to me, "Has it made me more money?" Well, I don't know, because I don't know what the other paths would have led to, but I'm pretty happy where I am now. So it's working that way.
No, because obviously you know how it's recruiters like, well, look, I can pick up the phone and I know how that's going to go, or the thought of obviously putting someone online and they haven't done before is scary, which I totally get.
But you don't know how it's going to go when you pick up the phone or post online. Just do it. Right, Nike say it every day. It's because it's still their slogan, but just do it. And don't worry about the outcome it's going to cause, etc. As long as it's authentic, as long as it's true and you're being honest. If you're doing something to gain straight away, eventually you'll be found out. You'll be a taker. Again, you just give out, just give, and then the other givers will give out as well.
Yeah, no, I really like that. Mate, honestly, that's so true of how I've approached it as well. But I just know it's hard to tap into that. It is hard to.
Well, you got your knockbacks as well. I've given you a bit of shit on some of your posts as well, but that's just being honest. And the thing people need to not be afraid of is that you read a message from someone or someone comments on your article. I mean, I did one article. Got like fucking 3.5 million, a million likes and 50 million views.
Really?
It was like crazy.
What was it about?
Always leaving the office on time. So did it about 3-4 years ago. Didn't expect to do what it did, and it was the most liked at one point ever. And I was like, oh my what fucking days. And so many people commenting. But at the time, I was receiving them all really negatively. That you're disagreeing with me, you're attacking me. No, they're not. They're just offering their point of view. And that's what content is. You get better at that. And you do, because at first your hair's on your back and you're like, you're a fucking prick. But
the thing is, because it's coming from a person, not everyone's going to like you.
No.
That's just part of it.
50% of the world ain't going to like you. 50% are. People we're not all the same. We all have different views. It's why in politics we get the right and the left. We've all got a compass.
Exactly. So I guess just to round that off then, with your whole journey with it and stuff, like what's your sort of go-to advice for recruiters that are listening? Obviously, I always give my own advice, and that's sort of the business I'm building now. But what's your advice from your own perspective, being a recruitment director?
It's always hard to summarise, but I think just be honest about who you are. You want to go to work every day and make an impact. And if you don't want to go to work every day, if you don't want to make an impact, then don't do what you're doing. In short, be honest about who you are and what you stand for,
and try and convey that online.
And every part of your life, not just online, and every part of your life, just be who you are and be honest about who you are. And online, in an office, in a pub, whatever else. So that's my advice to anyone in any walk of life. Is just be you. and be honest about who you are and what you stand for, where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are.
Yeah.
Be proud of your strengths. Just be aware of your weaknesses, but always work on your strengths, because that's what will get you through.
Yeah.
That'll get you through as long as you're aware of your weaknesses at the same time.
Yeah, good advice, mate. Cool. So look, I guess what I always like to ask people before we finish, mate.
Yeah.
I went quick than that.
Yeah, it's only about an hour, isn't it?
Yeah. What I was going to say.
I felt like time stood still.
What I was going to say. So what are you excited about then? What's going on in your world?
For me, I'm excited about the diversification of the business. We launched our public sector business back in March, but when we also did that, we reset our vision. And our vision now is to be the most trusted recruitment agency in Australia. And I'm so proud of that vision, because I talked to the consultants.
How do people receive that?
The first thing they say is, how do you build trust? What do you mean? And I talk to people around, you can try and say you're the biggest, you can try and say you're the leader, but can you quantify it? But you quantify trust by the metrics we talked about earlier about, CV to interview, placement ratios, etc. But for me, I read a great book, How to Achieve Extraordinary Results, by focusing on the one thing. And that's what I always talk about in life, is focus. What's the one thing? If you get that right, everything else follows a result, and it's trust, because people want to trust people. But in recruitment, no fucking trust anyone at the start. But so that's what we talked about now, is our vision being the most trusted. And then what we've done since then is now talked about, we don't promote people by how much they bill, it's by how much trust they build. So I'm really excited to start seeing this journey where our consultants, yes, obviously there's a financial outcome, but interesting, the result happens as a result of building trust. So focus on that. Focus on keeping your metrics low, keeping your feedback scores high, your replacement rate low. And do you know what? You'll make money. Yeah. You will make money. Whereas if you focus on just billing, you'll make money, but you might not build the best clients and candidates. So that's been something I'm incredibly proud of. I
absolutely love that. And as I'm now working with businesses and individuals, one of the things I do is I get them to think about what they want to be known for in their market. And one of the most, literally every recruiter has said it so far, I don't want to be perceived as just another recruiter. And I think that, and then when we're talking about what you do want to be perceived as, it does come back to what you're talking about there, trust, these things. So I'm really excited to see how this all levels out, because I think there'll be a lot of people listening like, Andrew, that's just wanky, mate. Shut up. What are you on about? Do you know what I mean?
What you want to say to people is, what will you define as success? Because what you'll find is some people will talk about the money that they bill or the money that they earn. But the issue then you've got to ask them is, okay, what about the trust? What about when things go tight with your clients or your candidates? And are they going to come back to you when they're not looking for people as much as they did? Yeah. And what I found was that the most trusted recruiters in my career, the clients have always looked after them in the good times and the bad times. The ones that just took the piss and were just about the money, they're either not in recruitment anymore or they've had about 5 jobs in that time. Yeah. So the wankiness, it might come across as that, but actually if you think about it, it all makes sense, which is if you've got low metrics, low replacement rates, high retention rates, high repeat business rates, you're going to make money.
Yeah, you're going to do really well,
Yeah, absolutely.
So the trust division, I love that. That's amazing. What else is going on?
I suppose obviously the new brand, the new business there. That's obviously a big thing for us as well. And me just moving more into the role, I became managing director of the business back in July. So learning about being an MD and not a recruitment consultant every day is always a challenge, because I have high urgency, I have high energy, but I have low abstract reasoning. So I've actually got to really think about things sometimes. So this stuff comes naturally, me and you. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I could do this until the cows come home. Yeah. But when someone says, right, let's talk about strategy and planning and execution, I'm like, kill me now. So learning about me and my strengths and weaknesses, that's another really exciting thing as well. And don't get me wrong, going through going through a cycle in the market, seeing who flourishes, who doesn't, seeing Kelly move into a state manager role and trying to rebuild a Melbourne business, they're all exciting things. Don't get me wrong though, I'm also shitting myself at the same time. But it'll come good in the end.
We can make. Well, look, a question I always ask people to finish off is, if you could communicate to every single recruiter out there that would take Andrew's advice, they'd listen. It could be a phrase, a sentence, one word. What comes to mind?
One phrase, one word.
It could be anything. It doesn't have to be one word. It could just be anything that comes to mind. If they'd implement your advice, they'd take it on, what would you say to these people if they're listening?
I think, be open to feedback and be driven to succeed. When I think about how I've got to where I've got to and where we got to, it's because we listened to people around us. But we came in every day, like I said earlier, with that drive. Want to make an impact every day, because that's what it's all about. You could have the worst day of your life, but at the end of the day, you get a good candidate, a good client, you get a good job on, and it all changes. So just focus on making an impact every day, whether it's big or small, and that will carry you through the bad times as well as the good times.
Andrew, mate, It's been a pleasure.
Been an absolute honour and
Enjoyed
privilege, mate.